There's a youth pastor I know who preaches almost exclusively on social media. He's not a big name yet, you've almost certainly never heard of him, but he's using social platforms like YouTube and Instagram to disciple his students and reach them every day, not just when they attend church. And in this video, I'll break down the formula he's using to create this content and introduce you to this innovative young pastor.
Well, hey there, and welcome to Pro Church Tools, the show where in 10 minutes or less, you're going to get a dose of tips and tactics to help your church share the message of Jesus while we navigate the biggest communication shift we've seen in 500 years. I'm your host, Alex Mills, joined as always by the boss man, Brady Shearer.
Last year, Alex, we went on a story tape trip to the state of Hawaii, and while we were there, we visited one of the islands, Kauai, and someone had Insta'd us through a DM and said, hey, we know you're coming on the story tape trip. We'd love to put you up. And we were like, okay. There aren't too many hotels in Kauai because like 18 people live there, including this individual, Alex Wilson. And we learned in the brief time that we were with Alex that he is an incredibly creative individual, and he's pushing the limits of Seize the 167 in ways that I think very few are. And so we wanted to highlight him in this episode of Pro Church Tools because we can all learn from what he's doing. To provide some framework, the traditional model for a youth pastor like Alex is to host a student service, maybe once every Wednesday night, Friday night if you're really ambitious. And that's when you're going to take the time to preach to your students. Hopefully they can sit through a 20, 30, 45 minutes like a youth group for me. Sermon where you're sharing the gospel, sharing the hope of Jesus. That's the traditional model. Alex took this model and completely flipped it on its head because while we were there in Kauai, which was like 3 days, every single day we were there and we were at his house, so we know this to be true, he was hanging out with his students after school, before school, helping them get to school. We went to his school at one point and he met some kid. He's like, sorry, you're going to sit in the car.
I got to drop this kid off.
We went surfing with these kids. We went to Puka Dog, which is a famous hot dog location on the island of Kauai. And this was the model that Alex did because he didn't really preach too much in person. He would hang out with his kids all the time, and then he would almost exclusively preach on social media. Completely different, but something that's innovative and using the timely mediums that we have to take the timeless message of Jesus and share it. And I went through a ton of Alex's work, and sometimes it was hard to track down because he has this habit of deleting everything.
He just did it the other day. He just archived like almost all of his Instagram posts, and now it's just pictures of him and his adorable family. It's like, yeah, I know your family's good looking, and I think you're all cute, but like, I want to see some of your content, some of your posts, but he's working on something new, which we're going to talk about in a bit.
Absolutely. The best thing to do is to follow him on Instagram, Alex Dion Wilson, which was not his original handle. No. He has since changed. So follow it now before it changes again. Alex Dion Wilson on Instagram. Basically, Alex has two formulas for creating these social media sermons, and we're going to show a ton of examples to illustrate just how cool they are. And the first formula is simple. It's 3 steps. Step 1 is culture. Step 2 is intersection with faith. Step 3 is application. The way that Alex will always begin these sermons is to highlight, acknowledge a cultural moment that pretty much everyone's aware of. He'll then intersect that cultural moment with faith, with a Bible verse, and then he'll provide an application point at the end. So he did this recently with the FaceTime leak. We all found out that FaceTime, listening to everything we say, someone can call you on FaceTime.
How crazy was that, by the way?
You don't even pick up. I know. You like decline it, and then they hear everything you say.
Crazy.
Yeah. So aside from that, Alex took that moment,
which we all heard about and were outraged about,
and then he shared it at the beginning of the sermon. And what's great about these sermons is they're all really short, 10 seconds, a minute. High GTV really still like 90 seconds, 2 minutes. And he's like, man, did you hear this thing about Facebook? And then he transitions and he's like, the Bible says we're all going to give an account. So whether people are listening to you through their phone, hey, look, God's always listening. That's why words are so powerful. We need to consider them.
I was shook by the end of that sermon. I was like, oh, wow. You're right.
Yeah.
I was just here for FaceTime drama, but you really got me.
But that doesn't remind me to turn off FaceTime on my phone. If you haven't already, make sure that you do. He did another with the Bird Box Challenge. So he's at railroad tracks. He's sitting down. He's wearing a blindfold. He's like, everyone's doing this Bird Box Challenge right now. And he does the entire video with the blindfold on. At the beginning, he's like, he's trying to set up the phone, but it's hard because like he's blindfolded. And then he used that to talk about, living by faith and not by sight, and walking blind. Again, intersects it with culture, and then provides an application point at the end.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first formula. The second formula, and we're actually going to play an example of this. If you're listening, you'll be able to hear it. If you're watching, you'll be able to actually see it. The formula for this second type of sermon is almost identical, but instead of starting with a cultural moment, intersecting with that with faith, and then providing application, he starts with a story. And whether you start with a story or a cultural moment, the reason that you begin a sermon in this way, especially on social, is to provide an immediate bridge point. You got to get people to stop scrolling, to engage with your content. So with a cultural moment like FaceTime, everyone's talking about that. It's a great leapfrog.
Right.
We did this with our episode on millennials last week. The new research came out from Barna. A lot of people were talking about that. We use that as this moment to springboard off of into our content. So in this example, if you're listening, Alex has set up a camera and he is far away down a sidewalk on his skateboard talking to an SUV, which I can only assume his family is in. He basically says at the beginning of the video, okay, see you later. And the SUV drives away, and then he starts skateboarding towards the actual camera. He finally arrives, and then he says this.
So we just moved from Kauai to California, and today I was playing in the backyard with the kids, and I realized something. They don't even know why we moved. They don't know where we even are. They know that, and yet they still are having a great time. They're still laughing. They're still having a lot of fun. And it made me think that's how I want to trust God. Like if he's doing something in my life that I don't understand, and he's moving me from one place to another, and I don't get it, I just want to trust him anyway and just be along for the ride.
So obviously Alex here is telling a story of moving. He's recently moved from Hawaii back to his hometown of Fresno, and he's talking about how his kids don't know they've moved. They're just having the time of his life. They don't have that awareness. He has a little bit more awareness, but he's acknowledging, I still don't have any awareness compared to how much awareness God has, the way my story is going. And I need to stop trying to control everything. Story, intersection with faith, and then he moves on to an application point.
Good. He does this other thing too. He does it, and you've probably seen these 10-second like sermons that he does. And so they're perfect for Insta stories. He posts them on his feed, so you get him in the feed too. Where he'll often also piggyback on like a cultural moment or like a cultural figure. So like one I can remember is it's a shot of him, but like he's got Post Malone like just like pasted onto his face.
Yeah.
And so he uses a cultural moment, says something about a lyric of Post Malone, and says, but God says this about you. 10-second sermons, they're so quick. You know, you don't have to stop scrolling for too long. You can last 10 seconds when you're swiping through stories, and he gets you all these times with these 10-second sermons. They're so much fun. Just these like little golden nuggets of truth. And I've never seen anyone do anything like this before. And I find that a lot with Alex's stuff. He's always trying new stuff. And when I see him, I'm like, oh, I'm seeing this for the first time. Like this guy is doing some of this stuff for the first time. And I think that's what's so special about Alex. He knows how to communicate to youth really, really well. He knows how to speak their language really well. And he knows how to use these social platforms as a ministry to share the good news and the hope of Jesus.
He did another 10-second sermon with the character of Arnold from Hey Arnold, and it basically sounded like this.
Football head or not, how God made you is wonderful and purposeful.
So again, he's pushing boundaries. He's doing things that I've never seen done before. And this has to do with his design and editing too, not just the structure and framework of the sermons, but the way that he's designing and editing them that will force you to stop scrolling. A couple of things that we can take away from the way that Alex designs these social sermons. He hard codes the subtitles. On YouTube, this isn't as necessary because if you're watching this on YouTube, you can turn on the subtitles or turn them off. But it is imperative on Facebook and Instagram to hard code subtitles for this type of micro content. Because people aren't going to turn it on or turn it off. And if they don't have audio on, which the vast majority of us don't, they're probably just going to keep scrolling.
Exactly.
If you have the hard-coded subtitles, you can grab them, and I love the fonts that Alex generally chooses. He does these GIF overlays. So he'll be talking about something, and then he'll just randomly put a GIF of Dwight Schrute making a funny face on the screen.
Yeah.
And this is perfect for students because, look, our attention spans are bad across all of humankind, but they're especially bad with younger people. And so he's putting GIF overlays of like rainbow prayer hands. He's putting GIFs of random, recognizable, and familiar television shows and popular, celebrity figures. Why? Well, because they have something to do with what he's talking. It's almost like B-roll, basically. which is interesting. GIF B-roll.
Yeah.
Again, things that are never done.
Yeah.
He's always shooting in different locations.
Yes.
Remember on social, repeat equals defeat. So he's shooting on the train tracks, or he's shooting in a church. He's shooting on some random street corner where he's fixed his camera up and skateboarded 20 feet away from it. Because every time you see him, he's in a different spot. So you never subconsciously become conditioned to the routine. So you always have a brand new start because it looks different.
Yeah.
And also always pay attention to the way Alex edits the first 3 seconds of his videos. That FaceTime one we talked about earlier. He has the FaceTime UI on the screen in the first 3 seconds. It looks like you're getting a FaceTime from him.
Yeah, he stops your scroll almost
Because
every
he knows
time.
he only has 3 seconds with his video. He's got to do something crazy to get you to stop scrolling. Then he can hook you with the cultural moment. And then he can start talking about the Bible. And that's the way that this is meant to be done. Alex has also started a brand new YouTube channel. It's called Apposite, which has a specific meaning that I'd never heard about. Apposite, like the word opposite with an A.
Yeah, I had to look it up. I looked it up first because he announced he was going to be launching a new YouTube channel called Apposite, but didn't say anything more. And there was nothing on his YouTube channel. I was like, what's going on? So I looked it up, and there were a couple definitions just today. So if by the time you're listening to this, it's also up. He posted his first video kind of explaining the channel. And he defined apposite this way, that it means suitable and fitting. And so he's setting out to create content on YouTube that is suitable for the culture we live in, but also fitting for wherever you are right now. And we were with Alex a few weeks ago, and I had the chance to talk to him over dinner about YouTube. We just talked YouTube, and he is so excited and being so intentional with the content he's trying to create on YouTube. I think what he's about to do is something really special. And so you should check out his channel. It's called Apposite, APPOSITE. And then, of course, a great follow on Instagram, Alex Dion Wilson on Instagram.
That'll do it for this episode of Pro Church Tools. We'll see you next time. Didn't hear that? I said thanks for watching. Now subscribe.
Let's get this video to 1 million likes. Peace.